All right, y'all. So this just in. COVID cases rise in all 50 U.S. states as this Delta variant is spreading in record speed. And so this is really bad. And this comes at a bad time because this is summer when people want to go back to some normalcy. And so this is by Ed Pilkington in New York and agencies. So Friday, July 16th, this article came out. Schools are open for in-person learning, and they have a limited number of children right now. Some don't. And so this is really sad because I was just at Costco not long ago, and they were saying that they were doing that early morning hour for the seniors to shop, and they said they were going to go next week back to the normal shopping rules where people can go in, they don't have to wear a mask. Well, got something from you here. It says COVID cases are rising in all 50 U.S. states as highly contagious Delta variant spreads rapidly across the country. News outlets reported on Friday morning with half the U.S. population yet to be fully vaccinated. Nationwide, new cases are surging 10% on last week, with several states reaching about its highest 50% increase. Four states, Arkansas, Florida, Missouri, and Nevada, are in the throes of full outbreaks. And so on Friday, CNN reported that all U.S. states were now experiencing the increase in the new cases more than 18 months into this pandemic. So data compiled by the New York Times showed an average rate measured about past 14 days was rising in all 50 states. And so varying from a dramatic 373% in Tennessee to 10% in Maine. And the Johns Hopkins University of Medicine Coronavirus Resource Center has presented data showing cases currently rising in all states except Florida, with noticeable surges in Louisiana, Arkansas, Missouri, and Nevada. So as the prevalence of this infection grows, prompting concern yet again for hospital systems, some authorities have begun to impose renewed restrictions. Here it goes. Los Angeles will return to mandatory mask wearing indoors, even for people who have been vaccinated on Saturday, as the nation's largest county that is, seeks to continue a sustained increase in cases among its 10 million population. And so on Thursday, LA County recorded 1,537 new cases, the largest daily load since early of March. And so that's how you know it's starting all over again, as if we started from the beginning. Nearly 400 people were hospitalized with COVID in LA as of Wednesday, up 275 from the week before, and 9 new COVID deaths were reported on the same day. And so I will intervene in this article here. What I have noticed and what is a clear indication that something is going on is I've been seeing a lot more ambulance. That's what happened when the start of COVID happened in 2020 in March. There was an unusual amount of ambulance and fire department officers and people riding through traffic, speeding through, trying to get people to hospitals. And it was unusually happening on the frequent. And so it's starting up again. And I'm starting to see that where they are speeding through traffic, trying to get through to get people to hospitals. And so it's unusual because it seems like it just happens for out of nowhere. And it's starting like that. So this is the all hands on deck moment. So it says that basically, let me go back right here. Nearly 400 people were hospitalized with COVID in LA as of Wednesday, and up to about 275 from the week before, and 9 new COVID deaths were reported on the same day. So this is an all hands on deck moment. LA County Public Health Officer Dr. Montu Davis said. So the challenge now facing states with relatively low vaccination levels has illustrated um, by Louisiana, that CNN reporter, that only 36% of citizens are fully vaccinated, and the state is recording 2,000 new cases of COVID a day, the highest level in 4 months. And so 60% of Louisiana new cases are accounted by the Delta virus, or variant as they call it, as a concern that grows in the U.S. might be headed for a further wave of infections, with the Delta variant exploiting relatively low rates of vaccination in parts of the country. Okay, and so this is really disturbing. So there's a renewed debate over the need of COVID restrictions. Rhode Island this week imposed a requirement on all public and private college university students that they must be fully vaccinated before returning to campus this year. And so the University of California has also said it will mandate that all students, faculty, staff must be fully vaccinated before returning to its network of campuses at the end of the summer. And so Dr. Rochelle Walensky, and the director of the Center of Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, told ABC Good Morning America that if the current rise remained unchecked, some states and cities might consider introducing travel restrictions again, tied to the proof of vaccination shots. I think now is our moment to rely and double down on our vaccination efforts and our other prevention interventions. She said public health experts have warned that the country remains vulnerable to new and more contagious strains of coronavirus because of the rate of vaccination that has slowed in the recent times. And so the latest CDC figures show that the 48.3% of the US population has been fully vaccinated, with 55.8% having had at least one dose, one shot. The highly politicized nature of the U.S. COVID response is also bearing down on this crisis as well. Several Republican controlled states have introduced bills prohibiting schools, workplaces from enforcing masks. And so, where does that leave people when that happens? So, other states such as Montana have banned employers from requiring vaccination from their workforces. Okay, and so vaccination hesitancy is running especially high among Americans who identify themselves as Republican voters. So a PBS NewsHour, NPR, and Marist poll in March found that 41% of Republicans were resistant on getting vaccinated. So the new public health order in LA follows the earlier recommendation by the county that everyone, regardless of the vaccination status, should be wearing a mask indoors. So it also comes a month after California's grand reopening saw the state roll back its major statewide COVID-19 restriction. And so other California counties and other states are also grappling with the spike in coronavirus caseloads, of course, led by the surge of Delta variant, predominantly affecting people who are unvaccinated individuals. So Sacramento and Fresno counties in Central California recommended on Thursday that masks be worn indoors, even by people who were vaccinated as well. And so the health authorities in Austin, Texas, on Thursday urged people who are not vaccinated or otherwise high risk to avoid travel and indoors and gatherings and dining out and shopping, and to wear their masks. And so vaccine decrease and the severity of the illness, reduce hospitalizations, and decrease the risk of death. And so, while breakthrough cases have occurred, health experts have said that the available vaccines provide strong protection, including against the known COVID variants. And so, that is what has been happening. Pandemic of the unvaccinated, Florida tallies 20% of a soaring new COVID-19 case in the U.S. Politicians, health experts condemn the vaccine misinformation as cases surge. And so they also have the first COVID cases at the Olympic Village, and there's live updates on that. And so this is where they stand on all of this. And so the UK's COVID lockdowns are set to end. One resident sees complications ahead. And so that's because the worry of the spread of this virus of the Delta variant is really a reality and unfortunate one. And so that's pretty much how that goes. And so what I've seen in California and Los Angeles, what I've seen is still a lot of the homeless. And I always like to bring it back to what's going on in your city. Okay, South Los Angeles. Some people are wearing masks, some people aren't wearing masks. Like I said, went into a Costco and they were saying that they were doing the early morning hour shopper courtesy for people who are seniors, and that they were going to stop doing that and go back to their regular routine where people don't wear masks. Well, now they're trying to roll all of that back, and so we'll see how that goes. Some people are resistant on wearing masks. You see every other person wearing a mask, and then some people wearing a mask half down onto their chin. And then you see people that are going in stores, and if they forget their mask, they don't even require them to have them. And then you see some people are, wearing their masks because they're trying to be as safe as possible. And so this is where we are left. And what I've also seen is the homeless situation that has increased. If you live in South Los Angeles and you drive along the Vermont corridor, you'll see a homeless encampment along there. There's urine, feces, poo, all kinds of sickness and violence, and homeless encampments, burned articles of furniture and clothing laying about in the streets on Vermont Boulevard, and anywhere between the Vermont corridors between Gage and Imperial, and so it's pretty bad. So you'll also see where there's still, a significant number of people who had been impacted by the job loss, and they're on unemployment, and they've been threatened that their unemployment is either going to be reduced and they won't be able to receive it, or they're being forced. Basically, you're being told if you want to receive any type of unemployment compensation or extension of pandemic unemployment, that you have to be looking for a job. And so they rolled back that whole thing where it used to be you didn't have to really be out searching. Now you have to be showing that you're searching for gainful employment of some sort. So with this virus spreading, I've seen hiring signs everywhere. I mean, in all the fast food places. Some people afraid to go back to work. Some people still can't go back to work because they have family members that are at home that they have to tend to. It's a lot going on, folks. They have been giving fines to homeless people if you're in front of schools, if you're in front of, I believe, government buildings, offices, places like libraries, places that are business that are extremely important, I guess. To some degree, you could get penalized for that. And so they want those encampments to be moved away. Um, Business owners have been complaining. Even in Venice Beach, they were clearing out the homeless encampments there because the residents said they didn't want people that were on the beach and taking away from the landscape of the beach with the tents and all the population of homeless people there. And also they were complaining about the safety of just individuals because they complained that there was a number of violent incidences happening from the people that were encamped out there by the beach area, and that it was a dangerous place to go. They even closed Muscle Beach down. Venice Beach was always known for Muscle Beach. They had to close it and shut it down because it was so bad over there. And so the residents were complaining that they are afraid to be over there because of the riffraff, the fighting, and the loitering, and the people that are around there, and the violence. Um, so that was what the complaints. They had the sheriff to go and try to clear it out. Some person that runs that area, they said he wasn't doing enough to control the violence and the homeless encampments from growing in the Venice Beach area. And so they wanted them cleared out. And I believe as of this week, they had cleared most of them out. And so if you go along Venice Boulevard, you'll see under freeways, there's rows and rows of homeless tents and encampments. In some parts of downtown, rows and rows of tents, homeless encampments under freeways, under freeways, over like where they have a clearing of brush, and so that's where some people, business owners, places, fires are set because people are cooking or doing whatever with fire, and then those little embers, sparks, they catch on to the businesses and then set the businesses on fire. You'll see RVs look like they've been burned from homeless people that are in an RV that maybe it doesn't work or it's really shabby and it's sitting by parked by in front of a business, and the businesses end up going up in smoke, and so it's interfering with also the quality of life. They say the people, as in the business owners, in terms of their business and the people they attract around, they don't feel safe walking amongst that environment, so they don't go into the businesses. So therefore, the people that own the businesses are losing money. So it's a lot going on here in South LA. There's protests. There was a protest today. I believe it was in the downtown Wilshire, and it has something to do, I believe, with the trans community. So I'm not sure all of the details. There also were some other protests that were going on earlier this week. There was a woman who was arrested for speaking out on voting rights of minorities. There's been more laws and restrictions on voting rights, and so the Black Women's Caucus was trying to protest, and Beatty is her name. She was arrested, and I believe she's been released. That's not in South LA, but it affects everywhere. I believe it affects here greatly too. But what also I've noticed is there has been this push for people to try to stay housed. Now, some people unfortunately were evicted because of non-payment, or not even trying to attempt to pay, or either they might have already had an eviction before prior to the pandemic. There was some issues like that. Everybody's situations are different. Some people lost jobs. However, they had some relief money. And so Governor Gavin Newsom, he said basically that the programs that have the relief money, which is supposed to help people stay housed, are working and scrambling right now to try to resolve those issues and help people pay back rent and then possibly future rent. When I hear that, it sounds good in one end, but then it's saying something really bad is happening, that they're agreeing to do 100% of your back rent and the future rents to try to carry you out, because this virus has a lot to do with it. This pandemic has a lot to do with it. Even though they did this grand reopening here in LA, you still have places that aren't operating like normal. And I'm going to say that because I'm in here and I know that that's what's happening. Not all the schools are operating and functioning on all levels. Some that are worried, they are a smaller business entity and they're worried about losing their business if they cut families off. Some of these families are desperate to work, so some places are risking having a lot of kids. I have seen some places where they have schools where they have a lot of kids, little babies, at child care centers and whatnot, so that the parents can work because they have no other way. And so that therefore that puts teachers at risk. So some teachers, some of them have either had one shot, some have had no shots. Some have had both shots. And so they are not yet requiring that some of these schools with the child care and little infants and schools like that, they're not requiring just yet for it's not a mandatory thing that teachers have their shots to work. They just got to show proof that they are not sick. That puts a lot of children at risk and a lot of staff at risk and other parents unsuspectingly at risk. And so that puts a high level alert on the childcare industry as well. And now you have schools that are supposed to be operating in full effect coming August. With all of this spread, 50 states, how's that going to work out? So that's something to think about. Then you have stores that have been functioning, they've been rolling back. Some of them have been saying they have back indoor dining. They were on outdoor dining. And so some I have seen out here, they have outdoor and indoor dining. So it's an option dependent on the person, the customer that comes. Some people still prefer doing the takeout because they don't trust it. Gyms are back in effect. I don't know that they are all operating on all their full capacity of people, but what I have seen on some gyms is where every other equipment is vacant, where a person that comes in to use the gym, they're on one piece of equipment, and then in between that equipment, there's a space, and then thereafter, it's every other person on an equipment. Um, in the gyms, and so some people still don't want to go back to the gym. They find it very risky because of all the people that you're sweating and you're profusely sweating and dripping all over these equipments. And even though they are saying or stating they're safe, how safe is it? And then the ventilation, sweating, a lot of body sweating in a closed space. And so some gyms will have a fan, but how safe is it? Are the vents cleaned, periodically? That's could be costly, but with this virus going around, there's lives at risk. And so that's also the workers that are in these gyms that have to look at that as well, because they're amongst all of that. Then, when you're in these gyms, you're going to the bathroom, you're taking a shower, you're walking close alongside of people, you're using lockers that many, many, maybe thousands of people have used per day. So how clean is it? It only takes one incident to start that outbreak. The other thing is you have other just businesses, businesses that are frequented. So these are things to consider, and I don't think they realize just how dangerous this is. So a lot of people's lives are at risk. Kids running around just in the streets, playing, as if there is no virus, no mask, parents not really looking after them. But they're amongst people, around people. It says this virus is very um, transmittable, easy to be transmitted, easy to be very contagious, highly contagious, but yet you have parents that's in kids, they don't have masks and they're running around people as if there was no virus out there. And so that's pretty problematic. It's being so that some kids end up in the hospital sick with this one. It's more so than the first one. So having said that, I'm going to let this video go, but this virus is on the rise. It's in all 50 U.S. states as the Delta variant spreads.